the holidays, loving your family without losing yourself. Loving your family without losing yourself. It could be called loving your friends without losing yourself, right? Loving your acquaintances without losing yourself. But a lot of times boundaries is a topic that's really, really hard when you've grown up in a family, as many of you guys have, right? All right, the holidays are often painted a season of joy, togetherness, and love, and they can be. Sometimes they are, but for a lot of people, the holidays bring pressure, old wounds, guilt, obligation, and emotional exhaustion. And I do want to acknowledge the holidays for anyone who's struggled with losing someone, they are the hardest time of the year. So not only have you lost something or someone, then you're gifted all these extra things that you have to worry about. And you have to take care of yourself, right? You have to take care of yourself first. The class is not about cutting people off, and it's not about creating distance for the sake of distance, right? It's about learning how to stay connected without self-abandoning yourself, right? I've said when we talk about this that boundaries are basically a bridge, right? And you're offering this bridge for them to be able to come across and meet you, in a safe place, right? In a place that you deem is appropriate, instead of you going all the way over there and getting involved in their stuff. Like you're extending, right, a branch to be able to keep this relationship. You value the relationship enough to say, this is what I need. I want to keep this relationship, but this is what I need. Okay. So it's a good thing. A lot of times people think that they're not good things. Boundaries are not rejection. Boundaries are self-respect. Say it with me. Boundaries are not rejection. Boundaries are self-respect. If you have been on the other end of receiving your friend's boundary, it can feel like rejection sometimes, right? It can. If you've been the one to give it, understand it can feel like rejection on their end too. And if you're one that cares about, right, the people around you, then you need to understand that. It can feel like you're rejecting them. You can feel like you're being rejected. It is still self-respect on the person doing the boundary, right? Sometimes, especially with family, choosing self-respect means choosing to be misunderstood. Now, I will speak from my experience here. When you set a boundary and you've grown up in a family to where someone in the family runs over like a bulldozer, okay? Prepare to be not the victim, prepare to be the villain for a little bit, right? Prepare to be the villain. Not that you are the villain, but you have to prepare for those stories to go around of what a terrible person you are. You said you weren't coming to the holiday dinner. You said you weren't doing this. You said you weren't doing that. You must not care about anybody. Like, how could you? It's the holidays. You owe it to your family, right? That can be what it's like with family, because that triggers this abandonment, this they're not in control type thing. You get the pushback. It's the holidays. You have to come see your family. You have to be with your family. You have to do this. You have to do this, right? You don't have to do anything. Now, you should want to, right? At some point, if you have healthy relationships, to see people. You don't have to. But let's dive in. This is why boundaries matter the most with family. So tonight we're going to talk about boundaries mattering the most with family. How to recognize when you need boundaries. How to prepare for the guilt, the pushback, and being seen as the villain. And how to still enjoy the holidays without betraying yourself. You can still do these things and not abandon yourself and the things that you want. You can, because I have. And when I learned to do it, it was great. I love spending time with my family. It might be on some sides of the family very limited time, but I enjoy the limited time that we do, right? Because there's boundaries. There's boundaries there. Why boundaries are so hard. Family is where our earliest patterns were formed. This is true. Long before we learned how to speak up, before we learned what was okay or not okay, we learned how to keep the peace. We learned how to earn love and how to avoid conflict. Avoid it. You don't want conflict. You don't want to mess up the holidays. Don't you want to show up and pretend like everything's perfect? I never heard those. I'm just speaking, right? For many of us, family taught us be agreeable. Don't rock the boat. Don't make things uncomfortable. Don't say no. Don't say no. If you say no, do you know what people are going to think about me? You're not doing it. They're going to look bad at me. It's going to look bad on me. So when you start setting boundaries, your nervous system doesn't read this as healthy. It reads it as danger and a stressful thing. It reads it as this is stressful. This is too much. This is too much, right? Too much. Because somewhere inside, there's a younger version of yourself that believes if I upset them, I could lose their love. That's your younger self, right? The one from younger that believes that. Some might be who you are now that believes that. But this is your subconscious. Boundaries with family feel threatening, not because they're wrong, but because you're challenging old survival strategies. If you have family that you go to and you see them, and when you have boundaries, it feels wrong, it is because you are challenging something that's probably been there for a very long time. When you present a challenge, you're going to get pushback, right? Not everybody loves challenges. A lot of people just want it peaceful. Here's some signs that you may need boundaries with family or friends. Like I said, this is not exclusive to family. We just talk about family close to the holidays. Let's talk about the signs, because boundaries don't usually show up out of nowhere. They show up after patterns repeat, and usually there's blow-ups or feelings that get weird. This can help you with that. You may need boundaries if you feel drained, tense, or anxious before family gatherings. Anybody feel that? Do you feel anxious around any part of your family, right? And it could be your in-laws, it could be friends, it could be cousins, it could be whoever. You may need boundaries if you rehearse conversations in your head days ahead. Days in advance, you're rehearsing these conversations. You may need boundaries if you feel guilt for wanting space at gatherings. You may need boundaries if you leave family events feeling smaller than when you arrived. Family events ideally should be a place where people can share love and joy. Catch up, right? It shouldn't make you feel small. If you notice physical symptoms, headache, stomach issues, and exhaustion, you may need a boundary. You may need boundaries if you feel pressure to explain, justify, or defend your choices. You may need a boundary if you're expected to tolerate comments that hurt, because that's just how they are. It's just how they are. That's just how they are. Pay attention to your body. Your body is often the first boundary messenger that you have. It's time for you to start paying attention to that. If your shoulders tighten, your breath shortens, your chest feels heavy, that is not weakness, that is information, right? If you have panic, if you get flushed, if you get upset, this is information. This is information for you to take note of, right? Information, gather it. Boundaries are not punishment. I know. All of these describe my holidays for decades. Yes, I totally understand. I do. Boundaries are not punishment. This is so important for you to understand on your side if you're a receiver of this or if you're the person trying to have boundaries. They are not about controlling others. They are about controlling access to you. About controlling access to you. Oh, it's not y'all's side of the family. It's not y'all's side. Not, no. Boundaries are not about controlling others. They are about controlling access to you. A boundary is simply you saying, this is what I can do. Oh, who reported me? Shame on you guys. A boundary is simply you saying, this is what I can do, this is what I can tolerate, and this is what I need to feel safe and whole. A boundary is you simply saying, this is what I can do. I can't come for 4 hours, but I can come for an hour. This is what I can tolerate. This is what I need to feel safe and whole, right? These are boundaries. Boundaries do not require anger, right? When you're angry, that's not the time to draw a boundary, right? Because anger is the surface emotion. Boundaries don't require anger. They don't require long explanations. They don't require agreement. You having boundaries, you setting boundaries do not require other people to agree to it. It doesn't require agreement. It does not. A boundary can be quiet. A boundary can be loving. A boundary can be firm. But the truth that most people struggle with is people who benefit from your lack of boundaries are the ones that resist them the most. Do you want me to say that again? The people who benefit from your lack of boundaries will often resist them the most. This doesn't mean that you're wrong. It means the dynamic's changing. And if you have had that situation, you will get resistance. You will. So here are some ways that you can prepare for the holidays, right? Because I love the holidays. I love to spend time with my family, with my grandkids. I'm hoping to see my stepmom and dad this year, my brothers. I'm wanting to see everybody. Here are some things to get prepared for the holidays. Before you walk into a stressful family gathering, preparation matters. If it is a family gathering that you get stressed out about, if it is a friend gathering you get stressed out about, here are some questions for you. What usually drains me? What drains me? What conversations leave me feeling exposed and attacked? What am I no longer willing to tolerate? What new things are you not willing to tolerate anymore? What topics are off limits? These are things for you. How long are you going to stay? What you'll do if a boundary is crossed. It doesn't mean you go in acting hateful. It doesn't mean you go in saying, well, I'm here, and you have this big ball of gross energy that everybody can feel, right? You don't have to, boundaries work best when you know an exit plan. It's true. If that happens, I'm going to go ahead and go to the bathroom, then I'm going to leave. Have something. Also, don't use it as an excuse to leave if you're perfectly fine, right? Know yourself. Self-reflection, right? Self-growth. You don't need to announce you're leaving dramatically. You don't need to threaten. You just need to follow through. You just need to follow through. All right, we're talking about being the villain. Being the villain. Why'd you do that? Why'd you change? How come you're like that? This is the part no one warned you about, right? Everybody talks about, set a boundary, do it, fine. There are some pushback for sure. Being the villain in someone else's story is the part no one tells you about. When you set boundaries, especially with family, you may be tolerated as the difficult one. Imagine that. You're the difficult one. She's always causing problems. He's always causing problems. Oh, you don't want to ask him that. You're the difficult one. You could be labeled as selfish, cold, changed. Something's changed within them. I'm not sure what it is, but they've changed. Or ungrateful. You're ungrateful. You're ungrateful. You're belligerent. You've changed. You're cold. You're selfish. This is what happens when people start standing up for themselves. And it doesn't have to be in a harsh way. This is when other people feel the pushback, the resistance. The truth is you're not a villain for refusing to play a role that hurts you. You are not a villain for refusing to play a role that hurts you, even if you've always done it. Yeah. When someone is used to your silence, your compliance, your overgiving, your boundaries feel like rejection to them. They feel like they're being rejected. And that can bring up all their stuff, right? I'm going to read that one more time. When someone is used to your silence, your compliance, your overgiving, your boundaries feel like a rejection to them. But discomfort does not mean harm. Just because you're making someone uncomfortable does not mean you're harming them. Let someone be uncomfortable. You're allowed to be misunderstood and still be right for yourself. Boundaries, you don't have to have an agreement, right? You're learning what's best for you. Healing often looks like being brave enough to disappoint people who were comfortable with your suffering. Do you want that again? I know a few of you will. Healing often looks like being brave enough to disappoint people who were comfortable with your suffering. They were comfortable with it. They were comfortable with it. So here's some ways to hold boundaries without losing your joy, right? You want to keep your joy. You want to have a happy holiday. You go to things to see people, to have joy, right? It should be a joyous time. Boundaries do not exist to isolate you. They exist to protect your joy. Focus on moments. Focus on moments. Focus on moments. Create your own rituals, quiet mornings, grounding walks, music that soothes you, things that you do before and after. If you need to change things because things in the family have changed, do. I had to get a different tree this year because my kids no longer want to partake in what we've always done. So you might have to change some things, and that's okay. Give yourself permission to step away when you need to. Just run to the bathroom. You got this. Give yourself a high five. Choose connection where it feels safe. Choose connection where it feels safe and release the fantasy of perfect family. Guys, this is a huge, very real thing, right? Almost everybody thinks you have this perfect family. You should have a perfect family. Nobody has a perfect family. Nobody has a perfect family. There are hard things that happen in all the families, right? There's not a perfect family. You don't have to stay longer than your nervous system allows. You don't have to explain your limits, and you don't have to earn rest. Joy grows where self-respect lives. Joy grows where self-respect lives. Hi, Dimensions. How are you? Hi. Joy grows where self-respect lives. I'm going to close with this. Loving your family does not require losing yourself. Hi. Loving your family does not require you losing yourself. You are allowed to protect your peace. You are allowed to honor your body. You are allowed to choose emotional safety. You are allowed to celebrate the holidays in a way that feels aligned with who you are and who you're becoming. Here's some mantras for you. Okay? You want me to, I'm going to read this again real quick for the holidays. Loving your family does not require you losing yourself. You are allowed to protect your peace. You are allowed to honor your body. You are allowed to choose emotional safety. You are allowed to celebrate the holidays in a way that feels aligned. You are. Here are some things that you can say if you're struggling and you need to go to the bathroom and, right? If you need to do that, that's okay. Here's some mantras to carry with you. I can love them and still choose me. Guys, you can love everybody. You can love people from across the world. You can love people on the other side. You can love people, you don't have to be right up in their business, right? To love them. So you can still love them and choose yourself. You can. Boundaries are an act of self-respect. You are worthy. You are worth it. You deserve to have joy at the holidays. You deserve to have joy whenever, right? Boundaries are an act of self-respect. Discomfort does not mean danger. Hi, Saltwater. Discomfort does not mean danger. You are allowed to change. You are allowed to change. Did you know that if people judge you on a past experience, you're allowed to change? And you don't have to have their agreement that you've changed. Just saying. You don't need permission to protect your peace. Now, I would say you need to go in and do it gracefully. You don't need to go in raging like a storm and then expect everything to be peaceful. Okay? Take a deep breath. You are not too much. You are not wrong. You are growing. And growth sometimes asks us to stand firm even when others don't understand. Okay? Okay. Do you think that will help you? I do have a worksheet. Like I said, I've got to get that to you guys. I'm going to go through a couple things real quick before I finish up and all. I want to go through the signs that you might need boundaries, because I feel like this is some important parts of the class. And I think that sometimes people assume that this is normal when you go to a gathering. And for many people, this may be your normal when you're going in for a gathering, but it doesn't have to be, right? It doesn't have to be. So if you feel drained, tense, or anxious before family gatherings, you rehearse conversations in your head days in advance. You feel guilt for wanting space. You leave events feeling smaller than when you arrived. If you leave feeling like less of a person, that's important for you to understand what's needed there. You feel pressure to explain, justify, or defend. You feel like but, right? You're expected to tolerate comments because that's just how they are. You know, Uncle Joe, that's just who he is. If it's not okay for you, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. A boundary is simply you saying, this is what I can do. This is what I can tolerate. This is what makes me feel safe and whole. And it is an extension for you to say, I value this relationship enough to have these boundaries because I want to save the relationship. I want to keep the relationship, but I know this is what I need. Right? Because I'll tell you right now what happens if you don't, you will start developing major resentment. Right? And then there is a shitstorm of brewing and it's coming and it will eventually make its way to you. And it won't be pretty. It won't be pretty. The people who benefit from your lack of boundaries often resist them the most. Who around you do you have that resist the change? They resist something. Now, I'm not saying like all of a sudden you're a different person and this person's like, I'm talking about you growing and healing, right? Not just you being an ass and doing things and they're upset about that. That's fair game, right? But people who benefit from your lack of boundaries often resist them the most. You were never like that before. What did I do? Why are you changing? How come you won't just do it? You always did it before, right? That's what I'm talking about. Okay. People who benefit from your lack of boundaries will often resist them the most. It doesn't mean you're wrong. It means the dynamics changing. When the dynamics change, what happens? It's not always pretty. It's not always pretty. It is not always pretty. You will be labeled difficult, selfish, cold, changed, ungrateful, rude, mean. You know how they are. So I hope that helps you with something regarding gatherings, right? Nobody has the perfect family.